As Nigerians prepare for the Yuletide, rising cost of food and latest inflation figures from the National Bureau of Statistics, that's the NBS, poses a threat to them having a blissful celebration. According to the just released November 2024 statistics, inflation rate has now risen to 34.6%, up from 33.88% in October. Now, this is a 0.72 percentage point increase, making it the highest so far in 28 years. Also, this is being reflected in the high cost of foodstuff, causing concern for many Nigerians. Food inflation has led to an increase in the prices of common food items like yam, rice, eggs, amongst others. This development leaves average Nigerians wondering how they will meet up with their basic feeding needs, especially in this festive season. Well, joining us in the studio for this conversation is the CEO Finance with Muktar, Muhammed. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Compliment of the season.
The same to you. The same to you. I'm certain persons will not even answer you when you make this greeting. They will tell you. It has become a norm that we have to greet. But including, I want to add some things to that list that we just reeled out, talking about rice, yam, eggs. There's onions. There is oil.
There's no tomatoes again. Tomatoes is fair.
It seems tomatoes is fair right now, that people can afford it, or they've come to terms with the fact that, okay, tomatoes, I can do without it. I can just look for coloring to do whatever it is. Yeah, I mentioned yam. The other day I was listening to radio, and a particular woman was just lamenting how it's so difficult for people to buy this oil to cook as it is. And I'm wondering, what really is the issue with inflation, that it has become so difficult for us to tackle it? We've put all sorts of measures in place. The government at some point just, said, we can import certain items into the country to see if that will crash the prices of all of these items. Yet it is not happening. And so some people are saying, perhaps this is artificial. And some are saying there is really more than meets the eye.
It's fundamental. It's not artificial. We are just been addressing the surface. We are not looking at the foundation of our problem. If you look, most of these oil items that you just mentioned, that is the cause of high cost of soil inflation, realize there are things that we normally produce here. Now, you mustn't rule out the insecurity that we have in the north. That's also affecting farmers going to farm. You shouldn't also rule out the fact that we also have and high energy costs. Again, that has to do with power. That is there. We also have transportation that has to do also with high cost of PMS. We also have inflation, which is still there, and still a major challenge. Like you said, food inflation. When you look at palm oil, like you said, we have two very well-renowned palm oil companies. Well, I say well-renowned, but maybe in Africa, we have Prisco and we have Okomo oil. And if you remember, there was a time that Okomo oil was also attacked by some of these bandits, and it affected their production also. Then there's the area of demand and supply, which is also a key issue when it comes to inflation and pressure. Demand and supply. You see Okomo, you see Prisco, you see other local. Have they been able to meet the local demand? That is where the foreign owner comes into play. So when you are not importing it, how much are you importing it at? What is the exchange rate? Remember, I'm happy you made mention of the policy of bringing in more of this product. But again, that was also with the cover, and that cover was that there will be no tariff. Unfortunately, up to this moment, that policy have not seen the light of day.
It hasn't.
So when you look at Nigeria inflationary problem, even if 80% of what we consume, let's assume we can even manufacture there, and we can. Over 70% of what we consume is dealing with foreign input. If the product is not coming in, the machinery to make it a finished product is coming from outside the shore of this country. So the CBN have tried to do what they have to do in terms of normal economic stuff. I've told you that we've been doing copy and paste. We'll see them hike rate, we hike rate, reduce liquidity, you reduce liquidity. And we started it with the UK, with the Kenya. Kenya looked at their own when if we continue to remove liquidity, high rate, we won't get anywhere. So they look at the food situation, and they removed tariff on all food items. That crashed the inflation. That brought it down to almost single digit. We see, if you look at other countries like the UK and the US that we follow, they look at area of intervention to bring down the costs. And if you look at the UK looked at power, and they decided to individual houses were giving power relief, maybe like a power subsidy. They intervened because that was a key driver of it. So we must look for a solution to our challenges than just trying to do the textbook economy. Like you have said, we have to look at it. What is really the challenge now? FX is there, then demand and supply is there. Then high cost of funding because of high interest rate is there for expansion. High energy costs, whether you're in power, whether you're in band A. Remember the Material Association were complaining about the high cost of power. The transportation is still there because it's only in Lagos you see you get fuel for the amount. When you go to the far north, the northeast, the north central, it's a lot. They are paying almost 3,000 for it. So we need to do something. We stop all these artificial means of trying to address our inflationary problem.
It seems that we still have a lot more work to do. Despite government interventions that we've seen. We saw a brief easing, I think, around July, August, thereabout. What were the factors that led to that ease at that time? Because suddenly by September, then we started to see an increase.
That's why we see inflation, why we say exchange rate. Remember at that June, we saw the exchange rate moved from a height of about 1,900, moving towards a low of 1,300, then now moved to 1,400, then now moved to that is when you saw that is in inflation. Right. Because again, like I said, some of the machineries that come in, some of the products that came in, because of that corridor, I always say it's a corridor of stability. Now, we are seeing that corridor of stability, but the corridor of stability have moved further. We are now at the corridor of stability of 1,550, 1,650, sometimes 1,700. Whether you're looking at the official market go as high as 1,650. The parallel market hit 1,700. So you are looking at most of the importers normally make use of the parallel market. So you see that the greatest issue we have is how we can maintain stability in the exchange rate. Because when you are bringing in your product, you know that the stability, you are bringing in at 1,600 or 1,400 according to the government budget estimate. If we do that, then we are going to really would have dealt with inflation. But as it stands now, when you look at inflation, when you look at power, like we talked about power, high cost of power, the power company will tell you because of high exchange rate. When you look at PMS, but they will tell you that because of high exchange rate. So everything is tied to the exchange rate. So, and you have not been able to bring stability in that space. Until you bring stability in the exchange rate space, then we'll continue to just struggle. You see going down today, tomorrow. Yeah. So it has a lot to do with the exchange rate. So once we're able to deal with that, then you have addressed microeconomic stability.
But how is it that those who are saddled with the responsibility of addressing these matters are seemingly not seeing it in the light of the exchange rate?
No, I don't think so. They do, because the last bankers committee meeting, I think for the first time, they came to the realization. And that's why the CBN governor said that they think they have maintained stability in the exchange rate, which I totally disagree. And I said we've maintained a corridor of stability, which is between 1,550, 1,600. We've not seen stability in the exchange rate like we used to see, where we go in maybe for 2 to 3 years. We've not even been able to maintain stability in that exchange rate market for 2 months. We have not been able to do that. So I think they are now beginning to see it, knowing that, we must maintain stability in the exchange. And I think that is the goal of the CBN, because they have a fairly good reserve now compared to where they were some years when they came in at a reserve of about 27 billion. Today we are hitting about 40 billion. You are also doing the diaspora bond this coming year. We have done Euro bond. We have seen the oversubscription. So we are beginning to know that we need to address liquidity. They are coming in with a transparent way of doing the FX transaction through the new window that they are introducing with banks and so we are going to begin to see how that can play out. But again, that can only play out if you have liquidity. Because again, when it comes to supply of FX, that is what is the challenge. And that challenge is not in the official side. It's in the retail angle, because the retail people used to patronize the BBC, the Bureau de Change. As it stands now, the Bureau de Change seems to be non-existent in terms of liquidity. They don't have the kind of liquidity to meet that retail demand. So the banks, the CBN need to come up with a form of intervention. Like you said, when you saw that exchange rate came down and you saw inflation, the CBN intervened in the Bureau de Change at that time, gave them about $20,000 each. And you saw that space had a bond of liquidity and you saw the rate comes down. So it's definitely a liquidity issue that has to do with the retail angles of them. It's not that man that needs $10 million that is having a problem bringing it when you go to the autonomous foreign exchange market. Is that man that just needs $1,000, that guy that needs $500, that one that needs $5,000 or $10,000 to bring in product, to bring in machinery that could help in finishing his agricultural product? That is the main challenge that we have.
So if we are saying stability is a critical issue here in terms of the Forex now, I am wondering, okay, if we have that much reserve, isn't that enough to ensure stability? Or we still have a long way to go?
No, it depends on what the strategy of the CBN. Remember, the CBN said we will not intervene in the market
anymore. Yeah.
They don't want to intervene. But again, I said we should learn our lessons. I mean, if you want to learn your lesson, you learn from global economy.
Right.
I'll give an example. South Korea, they are going through issues now that has to do with leadership that also in turn affect their economy. You see that their CBN watched how their bank, the CBN watch how their exchange rate was going, and it was going high. And he said, no, we cannot allow that. They intervene. So you must know the true value of your exchange rate so that once it's going beyond that value and you know like, we are more or less an import-driven economy. So you need to intervene to bring stability in that space. No matter how you try to do it, you need to intervene to bring stability. When you have maintained stability, and stability can only come through liquidity. When you are able to maintain stability, then you begin to think of diversification so that when there's an external shock, you don't have to go back to where we are. See, we've not had, sometimes when those shocks come, we begin to shout, diversify. We need to diversify. We need not to be depending so much on oil. Immediately we have stability in oil price. That's cool. And you see that when we have the crisis in terms of effects, sometimes we're able to maintain this. When we intervene, when we bring to stability, we maintain it for a very long time, 3 years, sometimes 4 years. But once they come an external issue, whether there's a crisis in Ukraine, whether there is oil price goes down, we are back to where we are. So we need to address that key factor. Our economy is still an oil-dependent economy. Let's not hide it. If you look at the data that come from Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, they will tell you that oil contributes sometimes less than 10% to the GDP. But again, in terms of value, which has to do with liquidity, 98% of the non-agricultural sector does not meet 5% of what you're having in the oil and gas sector. And that's why our budget is largely driven by how much crude oil we are able to produce, how much value in terms of efforts we are able to bring into our economy. So let's not deceive ourselves. As it stands now, our gold mine is oil. And that is why I'm so seeing the kind of type of reforms that is going in the oil and gas sector, especially when you are seeing locals, companies begin to acquire assets. I'm excited about that going forward. That also, we have seen the Dangote refineries here. We expect more refineries to come into stream. And remember that we said it in this program some time ago that if the data that we got from CBN is anything to go by, which says that 40% of the pressure of FX is largely driven for importation of refined petroleum product. And we're excited that with the coming of Dangote, that means we have 40% demand of FX drop. That is huge. That is ordinarily to drive down our exchange rate. But unfortunately, you and I know the politics behind
that's another issue. That's a major issue too.
And the NNPC, independent marketers now, independent marketers that refuse to import product for years, saying no, it's not viable. It's all of a sudden they are able to get the FX they couldn't get. They want to be importing. So there's a lot of issues there.
Politics.
And at this time where we're also looking into, ensuring that the Dangote refinery is also, stabilized, we're also looking at the fact that there are also prospects that we should achieve food security by 2025. What do you foresee? Because, I mean, the average consumer is looking, do I still have to buy yam the same price?
We're always very ambitious. We don't have long-term.
Is there anything wrong with that?
It's wrong. When you're ambitious, then you hide the hope of the people. You're not telling the people the true fact on ground. And so the people are so excited, saying, 2025 we achieve food security. It's not an overnight thing.
Food security is a process. There are cash crops that you will not begin to see it in the next maybe 3 to 4 years before you begin to get the benefit of getting cocoa. So we mustn't just sit down here and just think, oh, oil palm, if you want to do oil, it's not something that in the next 6 months you start having oil palm, you begin to, it's not like that. It's not like that. You need to have a plan and say, what area of food security? Remember we talked about the rice. Yeah. We're saying we're going to be the largest exporters of rice all over the world. Remember the rice pyramid in Abuja? I mean, all those interventions by CBN. And today, the cost of local rice is still more expensive than foreign rice.
Absolutely.
And why? Now we go back to why.
Yeah.
You import the machinery to convert it to a finished product. You need FX, high energy costs, microeconomic issues that have to do with what? That has to do with high interest rate and high cost of borrowing. So you need to address some fundamental microeconomic issues. Nigerian inflation is multi-dimensional. You know, in Nigeria we have multi-dimension.
Yeah.
Multi-dimension poverty. Now we have multi-dimension inflation. Why I mean that it's driven by microeconomic issues, it's driven by demand and supply, it's driven by FX volatility, and then again it's driven by cost of production. 4. But when you look at global economy, when you want to say, oh, what's driving your inflation? They say, oh, we have too much liquidity in the system, so we need to withdraw it. And they do that, it works. Oh, what's driving? Oh, supply chain. There's a supply gauge somewhere. We need to improve supply. It goes. But look at our own. You have, if you remove liquidity in the system, you know what is happening now. The small businesses are struggling because there's no cash. That is, you have reduced liquidity in the system. You did not create another window for it. So our inflationary project is driven by multidimensional issues, and that needs to be addressed. So when you are beginning to say, oh, you can achieve food security in 2025, you are not trying to tell me that you have been able to address these multidimensional issues that drive inflation. It is not possible. You need to put the foundation.
In fact, I was looking at some of the states, and Kebbi, that we used to have a collaboration that's talking about Lagos State and Kebbi Lake Rice. It's also part of those states that witnessed the highest rate of food inflation on a month-on-month analysis.
Why? Insecurity in Kebbi. Before now, the time Lagos State government went with that agreement, there was no, the height of banditry was not that high. The farmers can't go to farm. Kebbi and Sokoto now is becoming a hairwood for bandit because the security forces have made Zamfara unsecure for them. So they are now moving. And that's why new terror groups are coming that are terrorizing farmers. Farmers can't go to farm. People cannot even travel properly. Talk less of traveling with your goods. They are being taxed.
But the military talked about decimating them, talking about Lakurawa now, that is in some of the states that you mentioned, Sokoto and even Kebbi, that they are decimating them, and they are gaining successes with regards to that.
They are gaining successes. Remember, as the terrorists are also, they attack soft targets. They cannot come in one and face the military, so they go for soft targets. What are the soft targets? The farmers that are in the farm. They are the soft targets. The military cannot be in every local government in Kebbi State. Unfortunately, you don't have that manpower. The military is stretched. That's the truth. They may not tell you.
Governed spaces.
Yeah, they are stretched. They are battling insecurity in the southeast. They are battling oil theft in the south-south. They are battling terrorism in the northeast, north-central. They are not battling banditry also in that side. So they are stretched.
But one of the shocking one for me, still talking about states, is Benue State, not one of the states that saw a reduction in the rates of inflation on a year-on-year basis, because they also are facing security challenges.
Remember, the Benue State issue has to do with local security challenge. You know, when it is localized, you can always call the leaders for a meeting. What we have seen in Benue State is a localized issue that has to do with herdsmen and farmers.
Okay.
Remember that they have come to their roundtable discussion that security forces are involved. Some arrests have been made, meetings are being held. Security forces are also protecting some of these areas that are agricultural places. You've seen arrests have been made. So that is a local. It's not has to do with what the security people are saying, that an inflow from the Sahel region because of issues
the
in the borders and that. You are talking about a localized issue. You are talking about herdsmen. You're talking about farmers. The farmers were complaining that the herdsmen were allowing cattle to eat up their product. Remember that the Benue State also have their own, the livestock bill that they came up with, saying you cannot go within this place, you cannot go within this place, cattle cannot move from this place to this place. And you saw that some of those herdsmen decided to also move to Nasarawa at a point, and the Nasarawa State government began to battle them on that because of those. So you can say that's a localized issue. Right. When you have localized issues, you know who those are. Remember again, this even up to yesterday, I think the Senate or the House of Representatives are calling the security force to come and give reason why the chairman of the Maiti Allah's cattle is still arrested by the government. So those are made because they are localized issues. We are able to handle them. We are able to find a way around them. But when you talk about, that's why you see that in Benue State, because they've been able to know. They've seen the cause of the problem. It's a localized problem, and then they were able to address it.
Interesting. And President Tinubu is expected to, present the budget today. We've seen a lot of, reactions to that. So many persons say we've not had a lot of funding in major sectors that is still affecting our inflation. So what are your expectations, looking at the fact that we're already in the Utah season, and perhaps changes that you expect that will have a direct impact on inflation, food prices?
Look, the president has the idea. He knows what to do, and he has tried to do it. I think his food soldiers need to come in and begin to do what the president. That is the removal of tariff on food items. That's a game changer. It happened in Kenya. It can happen here. That is what I expect the president to do, especially this Utah city and period. Remove that, and you see how price of house of food item. Nigerians are just looking. We are not looking for. We're just looking for food security. That's a major challenge that they are asking the president to do now. They are not looking for a job. Nobody's shouting, I don't have a job. Nobody's shouting, I don't have food.
There are still those voices somewhere.
those voices are there, but now it's food security, which affects everybody. It doesn't look at PDP, it doesn't look at APC, it doesn't look at AGAB, it doesn't look at Labour. Now, when you look at the budget, the fear is there. A budget whereby you see revenue is low, expenditure is high. One of those places that you're supposed to drive revenue, to help improve revenue, and in turn boost production, create employment, tax reform, there's issues there. You're looking at an exchange rate at 1,400. The last time you presented the budget, the exchange rate was 800. We were not able to achieve it. We did a lot of borrowing. Now, exchange rate at 1,400 officially. That we are trying to bring it officially, it's not even at 1,400. That's another challenge. Oil production. Before now, we did an oil production. We were supposed to have oil production of 1.7 million barrels. We did not meet it. And now we are up to 2.06 million barrels. How are we going to deal with that? We are still there. I think there were three issues. Then oil price, crude oil price at $75 per barrel. And as it is today, I think it's probably between 75 to 78 barrels. Remember that there's coming a man that does not believe in high cost of oil, Donald Trump, the president of America, and he's going to release the reserve in America to crash down the prices and open up new reserves. So we're already having a challenge with the budget already, even before the presentation, which has been the norms for a while now. Sometimes you just see the projection. At the day the president will be presenting the budget, I don't know how it happened. You see that the price that is fixing for the crude oil price is lower on the day it's presenting the budget. This has happened for the past 3 years.
It's happening today.
Hopefully.
So because you mentioned something, the attitude of the people, if the president, for instance, decides to, remove tariff on certain items, there are those who will still insist that I bought it at a particular price, who already have stock, and say, I cannot sell it at this price. And there's even also the fact that there are those who deliberately just increase the price of items, saying that when I go back to the market, I don't know what the price will be. So let me just increase the price right now so that I can be safe.
You see that when I talk about stability. Because there's no stability. If you look at those that are increasing the prices, they tell you that they are not sure of the exchange rate by the time they go to the market. It's all boiled down to stability. If I know about a product at 600 naira, if I go tomorrow, it's either at 600 naira or it might even come down. There's stability.
So it's not wickedness.
It's not wickedness. No, it's not wickedness. Look, if you want to practice capitalism, practice capitalism. If you want to practice socialism, practice socialism. Capitalism is the businessmen will always look for a way to make more gain. You as the government, you are the one to put in policy that makes stability comes in. Now, when you look at those things, remember that's why the president said he was going to give us a 6 months period for the removal of tariff on food items. Because they know there will be a backlog. You don't expect that once the president comes up with that, immediate, you see that price crashes. But you see atom of price crashes for those that will not be importing at that time that the tariff. But those that have it or want to finish up their product, they will not be operating at a loss. So there's that corridor. That's why when you see, they will tell you that reforms take time. Yeah. You don't just see the result, oh, reforms. The only reforms that you see immediate result, immediately you do it, is exchange rate. Because if you look at some of, I've tried to be to some of the supermarkets to see what is happening when exchange rate was 1,900, and now the exchange rate is over between 1,700. You could see slight difference in some of these imported products. You could see slight difference in prices. Because the exchange rate has come down a little. You see, it might not be much, but you see slight difference. But that slight difference would have been much if they are sure of the stability. So that's why that comes to what you say, that they'll say, okay, by the time I go to the market again, I will not be buying it at that price. So let me maximize my gain. So that in itself is a challenge.
It is.
It's a big challenge. But again, it's largely driven by macroeconomic policies. You can't help it. Business will move based on your policies. Business will crash based on your policy. When you come up with policy, there are some business that will continue to strive. When you come up with policy, there are some business that will continue to suffer. Today now, with the recent cash scarcity, which business is thriving? POS.
that is a whole different topic.
So that's why I say, so when policy comes,
because I'm wondering why the CBN have not stepped into that.
They've stepped in. They've told you that, I mean, the banks are saying multiple account holder, whether you have it in...
who gives them the
no,
cash?
you know, another time they are trying to address it now. You're saying whether they are not. There is a multiple account holder. So if you are in GT, if you have an account in Fidelity or you have an account in FCMB, if you withdraw from GT, 20,000, you cannot go to FCMB and want to withdraw again.
These people have more than 20,000 naira now.
No, that's why they say the maximum they will give now is 20,000 naira. But let's leave that. That is a different ballgame. If you want to go into that, you realize that regulation is the main problem, not really the bank. The regulators have not upped their game, because if you say, just a little dive into it, if you say you have liquidity in excess of 4-point-something trillion, you are even saying there's more liquidity in this. So where is that liquidity? So it's in the hands of some very few people. And in this utile season, Nigerians
need cash.
They need cash. Domestic workers, you don't pay your domestic workers and telling them to go to the bank. They want their cash. That's because they want to travel.
Some of them will not return.
Yes, they want to travel. They want to travel. They don't go to enter transport and telling transporters that, oh, I have POS. They will not accept it. They'll tell you because they are not sure of the infrastructure. They'll tell you the money has not dropped. So you better you give your cash. And that's why in every motor park you go now, you see that there's a POS operator that is there. And that, because of that, that has increased the cost of transportation. Because those POS operators are charging high beyond the fee that they're supposed to charge. Right. So the cost of transportation has gone up. So that means the earning ability of the average Nigerian has come down.
Unfortunately, time is saying we need to end this conversation now. Thank you so much for your time on the program. So much has been said and so much more to still talk about. But we must thank you, CEO of Finance with Muktar Muhammed, for your time on the program.
My pleasure always.
Thank you so much. We'll take a break now.